collecting all this different data. You have multiple devices like Amazon, Spotify, Google, Instagram. Hey guys, welcome to this session by Intellipaat. I am Ram and I'm the one who will be covering the topic today. So the topic for today is why Splunk. So guys, let's go ahead and start up with the topic. Why Splunk? So let's take a look at our agenda for today's topic. So first, we'll discuss why Splunk. Why do we need it? And then we'll move on to discuss what it is. And then we'll talk about the different components it has and how all the different components form an architecture. And then we'll see a Splunk demo where I'll show you guys how we can use Splunk, for performing some basic searches and creating an index. Then we'll discuss about the, salary you may receive in the field of Splunk, like you'll have different roles. And for those different roles, what kind of salary you can receive and the job trends there are. And then finally, we will conclude by discussing the further learning aspects, how you can choose what you want to do and how you can learn for all of those different specific topics. So let's go ahead and start up with why Splunk? Now, guys, this is an important question. Why do we need Splunk? So let's start up by discussing that amount of data we have in today's world. From every single aspect of our life, we produce data. If you're going for shopping, you're producing some kind of data because you're shopping for something, and that something is data. Suppose you go into Amazon and you put something in a cart, that is data. Now that is, real life data. And then you have applications that produce data. If I go to a website, I type in some kind of, username and password and some of my details, I'm entering some kind of data. And if you look at an application, like suppose you have Windows system, this particular Windows system produces many different types of data. It has, produces metric information, it produces logs, all of these different types of data. Because every time a task is executed, a log is created for that particular task, and that is a data. And a lot of companies out there use this fact, make proper use of this fact by collecting all this different data. You have multiple enterprises like Amazon, Spotify, Google, Instagram, Netflix, Microsoft, Alibaba, Myntra, LinkedIn, Snapchat, and Domino's. Some are examples of these big companies that make use of this data. They collect all of this data and analyze this data. So they take this data from different sources of data. You have your applications, you have your databases, you have your systems, you have your customers where you take the data from. And this forms a large set of data and you want to analyze this data. Well, basically you want to analyze this data and, increase your profits and efficiency by analyzing it. How does that happen? Because once you understand how your data is being produced, you can find the patterns that will help you to increase the efficiency. Because you understand this data. So you know where to make the particular changes that need to be made to make the whole pipeline more efficient. Maybe the pipeline of the production of the service that you're giving to people, or maybe the pipeline of the software that you're producing. This data, right? You analyze it and you get some insights from that data. Maybe you understand how a customer, reacts to a particular thing. What are his buying habits? So once you understood that, you can basically give him targeted ads that target that particular buying habit or that behavior they present. So this is how you do it. You gather the data, you process and analyze it, and accordingly you make decisions that are right for your business, right for your business needs, and hence you increase the profits and hence you increase your efficiency, right? And this is why we need to collect that data. And this is where Splunk comes in. Splunk is basically a proprietary tool that collects all the data there is and helps you to analyze it in different ways. You have data coming from Linux, Windows systems, your servers or databases, your applications, volumes, networks, all these different data sources create log files, create metrics that are fed to Splunk. And then Splunk comes up with, different visualizations, different, analysis of it, different insights from it, and it gives it to you. It gives you the tools. Splunk basically is a tool which you use to perform these amazing analysis. You create amazing dashboards, you create reports. So this is what Splunk does. All right, guys, now let's look at the concrete uses of Splunk. What are the different uses of Splunk? Like we know why we're using Splunk. Now let's look at the uses of Splunk. Like you have the first use is monitoring the system performance. Now this is again important. You need to know how well your system is performing. Like suppose you know how you always open up your task manager if you're working with Windows, right? Because you want to see how much memory is being used by which particular program. Because if your system is slow, you want to see why is it being slow, what is affecting it so that it's slow. The same way you can use Splunk to monitor your different systems that are working under you. Maybe you're making a food delivery app, so you want to monitor how well it's doing, how you want to measure its system performance. So suppose it's using up a lot of resources, it's in the red zone. Then how do you make sure that it's not in the red zone and in the green zone, so that it's not using as many resources but it's still providing the end result, that is a functioning food app. Then you gather so much data. Data science is so popular these days, and you need a way to collect that data, and you collect that data using Splunk. And then using that data, you make informed decisions, because once you've analyzed the data, you have an insight into that data. So you know what kind of decisions you need to make after you've done that. So security cognizance. Basically, if you're monitoring any networking data, suppose you have a whole, vast network of different servers interacting with each other, because, in some multinational corporations, you'll have so many different servers, and they'll be producing so much different data because they'll be talking to each other. Maybe one instance is talking to the 100th instance, and the 100th instance is talking to the 1000th instance. And, it'll be very tough to figure out if some hacker or some person is illegally, looking into one of these servers. Maybe he's trafficking a lot of data out of the system. To figure those kind of things out, you need Splunk, because it helps you to create a security scope over your system. Then monitoring system health. It is a bit similar to monitoring system performance, but in this case, you'll make sure that your system does not crash. Maybe if it's crash, then you need to know about it. Suppose you deployed a new version of your food app, and this food app gets, it stops working after some time, after a day or two, it crashes. So you need to know, you need to be informed if it ever happens. Maybe you can attach your Slack to Splunk, so that if something happens to your particular project or feature, you immediately get a notification, or you put your email notifier, so you immediately get a notification of what happened. And finally, it helps you to improve your quality using all of these different use cases. It helps you to increase the performance, increase your efficiency, helps you make all the right decisions. It helps you, polish your whole process of whatever you're doing. Now, Splunk can be used in many different use cases also. So let's look at some of those case studies. Which companies? Australian company. It's Australia's, first online property exchange network. It's basically for those people who want to exchange properties, and make sure that all the legal documents are being, perfectly and properly being transferred from here to there, and all the particular permits and land registries are being signed on. So PEXA works on that in Australia. So what happened? What were the challenges that PEXA needed to overcome? So a few of the challenges were that PEXA needed to monitor its platform within a complex regulatory environment, and a high volume of interactions needed to be monitored. It needed to monitor all the different interactions that were happening. It needed to monitor, all the different things that are happening in the environment. Because since PEXA was working with so many different people and so many different systems, it needed to monitor all of that. And it lacked, a particular single entity that monitored all of this. And this is where Splunk came in. So Splunk came in. It helped them to create that central entity which is able to monitor over all the transactions that are happening. So their data, so much data is being transferred from here to there. And Splunk came in and it unified the whole experience of monitoring everything, and monitoring multiple servers, several multiple transactions at the same time. It helped them with that particular thing. And it helped them to automate the whole process, make it more efficient. And after they studied the data, after they understood what was happening, with the systems, monitored it, they improved on it. Again, that is one of the best, uses of Splunk. It helps you to improve the service that you're providing to your customer. It helped them improve it. It had a very big business impact on them. They had, greater operational visibility into the system's health. They got real-time alerts on if something wrong happened. If they set that criteria that if this goes wrong, send me a message. And they were able to deliver an amazing experience to their customers. So this is a successful case study. All right, now guys, let's take a look at another very successful case study. You have the company Vodafone. It's one of the most popular telecommunications company out there in the world. It's very popular in India also. And this company provides a range of services. You have your messaging to calling. A lot of people use it, and it provides internet also. Now, since it provides internet messaging and calling to so many people that it has to, install a large amount of infrastructure everywhere to be able to provide that service to people. And this became a very big problem as they grew even more and more. The IT team, couldn't handle such large amounts of, systems and hardware everywhere. How would they monitor if something crashed or something went wrong, if something just shut down? And this is where Splunk came in for them. It helped them to address these issues. It helped them to, again, give them a medium for looking into the health and making sure that all of the systems are up and running all the time. So this is one of the things that Splunk helped Vodafone solve. Now, a few of the problems they had was, prioritizing issues because when you have such a big company with so many different things, so many different systems, so many different customers, you need to prioritize your issues. So that was one of the challenges that they faced. And then Splunk helped them. It helped them to create a very transparent operational, ability. It gave them that ability to work really well, prioritize the issues, and then finally it helped them to perform rapid issue resolution. Now, rapid issue resolution helped them because, when you have so many different errors coming up, how do you solve them so fast? How do you know which issue is happening? Again, Splunk is able to find those issues and help you out with them. And this also again greatly impacted Vodafone's business. It increased it, improved it, improved the visibility of all the issues, helped them prioritize it, etc. So as you can see, Splunk is very successful with these big companies that have so many servers, so many systems, so much data coming in. It helped them very well to, process, analyze the data, help them respond to the issues that they had. All right, guys, those were the case studies. Now let's move on to understand the Splunk architecture and the different components that are involved in the Splunk architecture, right? So let's start off by discussing, what kind of different architectures there are. So you have your single server environment and you have your distributed environment. Now let's take a clear distinction between these environments. A single server environment is not for, commercial users. Most of the time, you're going to be using a distributed environment, and we will talk about why it's so. Let's start with single server environment. Now, a single server environment is generally used for testing purposes or creating a proof of concept for personal use if you want to just check it out or if you want to do some learning. So as a learner, as a basic learner for Splunk, you'll be using a single server environment. You will not be using a distributed environment. I mean, if you're working in a company that already has Splunk installed as a distributed environment, then maybe you can learn in that. But it's always preferred if you learned in a single server environment. It's not used for actual deployment per se. And you have your distributed environment. Now, a distributed environment is basically, it's a big hierarchy of different components of Splunk acting together to give the best, ability to the people, the clients. It helps people scale up the operations also. Now we will see how this happens by discussing the different components. So Splunk, even though it's one singular tool, it has multiple components involved within it. And that's why you see the hierarchy forming and all the different big architecture forming because there's so many different components. They have to interact with each other. So let's start off by discussing those components. Now, there are two categories of components with Splunk. You have your processing components and managing components. So let's start with the processing components. In the processing components, you have forwarders, you have indexes and searchers. So let's talk about each of these components one by one. So forwarders. So Splunk originally, it helps you to collect data, process that data, and then it helps you to create visualizations on that based on that processing. So how does it collect the data? So forwarders are a component in Splunk that helps Splunk to collect the data. Forwarders are installed on data stores sources. So if you have a food delivery app, let's take that example again, and you want to collect data from the different microsystems that are working in Splunk. How do you collect data from them? So what you do is you install your Splunk forwarders on the different microsystems, on the different servers that are running these microsystems, or let's not say microsystem, let's say features. You have your different features in one app, right? And you're running them in separate servers to make sure that all of them are getting the proper resources that they need. But how do we monitor them? So we monitor them by installing forwarders on them. So these forwarders, they basically collect, or they're basically the tools that help to collect the data. So they collect the data and then they push it to indexes. Now, a lot of you guys already know what indexes do. Indexes index the data. They take the data, index it, and then they store it for later searching purposes. And then you have your search heads. So once you stored your data, you need to be able to search it, right? So how do you search it? So there comes another component, that is your search heads. With forwarders, you collect the data. With indexes, you store your data. And with search heads, you search that data, because you have to analyze and process that data, right? Or just analyze that data and create visualizations out of it. So that's where you use search heads. Now, when you're working in a distributed environment, all of these different components will be working separately. They'll have their own nodes, their own instances on which they'll be working. This is to make sure, or this is to optimize the resource usage of all these different components. Since Splunk is designed to work with large scale operations. That's why they divide all of these different things into all these different components, so that each component is lightweight and does only what it needs to do and does not needlessly complicate things. Okay, so these are the processing components. Let's move on to the managing components. Now, there are a lot of managing components also. So these components basically support the activities of the processing components. So they'll basically be managing them, or they'll be monitoring them, those kind of things. Okay. So you have your deployment server. So deployment server is basically used to manage all the different forwarders. So why do you need a special server just to monitor the forwarders? Well, this is because, since Splunk works with such large scale environments, you have so many different forwarders. Suppose you have thousands of servers in one particular area. Now you need to monitor all of them. So you need to install forwarders on all of them. So how will you do the deployment? How will you manage all these different servers, all these forwarders? Maybe you want to change some configuration in all of these forwarders. So how will you do it? You do it using a deployment server. Now, deployment server will have its own dedicated instance. Then you have index cluster master node. So the purpose that deployment server serves for managing forwarders, in a similar manner, index a cluster master node is used for managing all the different indexes. You will not have a single indexer, you'll have multiple indexes storing multiple different types of data. How do you manage it? You use an index cluster master node. You don't go to them individually, because that's going to take a lot of time and it's going to waste a lot of your time and it's not efficient at all. Then you have search head cluster deployer. Now, this one, as the name suggests, it's for managing the search heads. So if you guys remember, in the processing components, we have three processing components: forwarders, indexes, and search heads. So deployment server is used to manage all the different forwarders. Index cluster master node is used to manage all the different indexes. Search head cluster deployer is used to manage all the different search heads. Then you have the license master. So see, I didn't tell you guys about whether Splunk is free or not. Well, it's free for learning. But when you're working in such a large organization, if you're using Splunk, you definitely have to pay for the usage. So Splunk as a tool itself is free. But when you index particular amount of data, right, that data is licensed. So the amount of money you pay to the Splunk organization is based on how much data you're indexing or collecting in a particular day based on GBs. You can look at the pricing of that on the website, but you need not, concern yourself with that. This is just learning about Splunk. So license master is basically used to manage all the different licenses. Now you have the licenses, for how much data you're using. You'll have license for what kind of app you're using. So you'll have different kinds of licenses. To manage all those different kinds of licenses, you need a particular master node for that also. Like a particular node for managing all the different licenses you have, right? Then you have a monitoring console. So the monitoring console is the last management component, which is basically, used for monitoring all the different nodes there are, all the different forwarders, indexes, deployment server, index cluster master node, search head, cluster deployer, license master. It monitors everything and it gives you the output you want to see, So it basically is for monitoring. So these are the different components. You had your search head, you had your indexes, you had your forwarders, you had deployment server, index cluster master node, search head cluster deployer, license master, monitoring console. Now let's look at how this would work in an architecture. So you have your administrator. Maybe suppose you're the administrator and you need to start working with it. So this is how it would work. So the administrator works with the management layer where he'll be working with the deployment server, the license master, the cluster master, monitoring control, and the search head deployer. So this is the management tier. So you'll have single nodes for each of them. Whereas you'll have different clusters. Suppose you have your deployment server, which manages the forwarding cluster. The forwarders are the collection agent. These forwarders are installed on the data sources. They collect all the data and then they send it to the indexer to be stored. Now, this will be done through a load balancer. It will not just send the data straight away. It will send the data to those indexes which are available for storing or indexing the data. And this indexing cluster, the cluster full of different indexes, is controlled by your cluster master node. And once you've collected all the data, once you've stored that data, you've indexed it. Now you have to search it because you have to do something with that data. And this is where the search head comes. So you'll have even different search heads on different nodes. Why? Well, because when you have such a big organization, you have different instances, right? So you want to monitor the different types of data coming in. So you'll have different people from different teams needing to search that particular data. So suppose we have three teams. One team is for the payment feature, one team is for the order management feature, and one team is for the warehouse feature. So since all these different teams need to look at the data that is coming in for their particular features, they'll need to use different search heads because then they're not using the same search head, so they're not using the same amount of resources also. That's why you have a cluster of search heads also. They are managed by your search head cluster deployer. They'll access all the data from the indexes. So this is what your Splunk architecture would look like a very basic example of how it would look like. It can be very complicated depending on what kind of deployment plan you're going with. You need to know the IT architecture also, what kind of IT architecture you're working with. Different companies will have different architecture and different IT environments also. So accordingly, you will make a Splunk deployment of these different components of Splunk. But the end goal here is, collecting data and visualizing and, getting an output out of that data. So guys, let's move on to the Splunk demo. All right, guys, let's quickly start off with the Splunk demo. Okay, the first thing we'll see is the installation. Okay, so I'm not going to go through the extensive installation in this video itself because that itself is going to take a lot of time. We might do that in some other session, but I'll just show you how you can proceed with it. So in Windows, if you're using Windows, which I do recommend for all the beginners, you can just go to the Splunk website or just type in Google Splunk Windows download. Then it'll ask you to register. You can register, and then download the .msir installer. Okay, once you've installed it, you can go ahead and launch it on your web browser. So you can launch it by just going to the website and typing in localhost colon 8000. This is the port at which Splunk works at. Now it will generally give you a screen where it will ask you for a username and password access. But I'm already logged in. That's why it gave me the dashboard. And that username and password you will enter when you are, during the installation. Now another, place where you can work with Splunk is from Linux. Now you can use any type of distribution you want to. You can type in Google Splunk Linux installation, and it will, if you register, it will give you the link, or you can just copy the link from here in the screen. Just type this out and download it and then uncompress it. And then you can start working with Splunk. Now, there are a few commands to start it up that we will not discuss here because again, it will take a lot of time. So I prefer if you guys, start with the Windows installation since it's a bit easier also. So once you've installed Splunk, you will see this is what you get as your dashboard. Now, let me tell you what is important, what is not. So this part over here, it's not that important. Obviously, Splunk documentation, if you want to check that out, or the Splunk apps, or if you want to add data straight away, you can do that. But this is useless, like for you guys. You don't have to look at this. For you guys to learn, just check out the Splunk documentation if you want to. And other than that, so as you can see, there's something called apps over here. So in every component of your Splunk, you might have some kind of app. So here, an important app is search and reporting. Now, search and reporting is a default app that will be there for every one of you by default, but timeline will not be there. This is an app that I had installed previously. Okay. And then let's look at settings. Settings is another important place where you can see that there's, a lot of options. You can add data, you can, check out the monitoring console, check out the data inputs, forwarding and receiving. You configure that over here. You can check out the indexes, the sources types, the knowledge objects, everything. The system settings, user authentication settings, distributed environment settings, etc. So what we will be doing today is we'll be basically, checking out one of the indexes. So let me just click on the index. It's gonna take me to all the different types of indexes. So when you do a fresh install of Splunk, it automatically creates a few default indexes. Why? Why does it create these few default indexes? It creates these default indexes so that you can so that Splunk has something to work with. Because Splunk also needs to store data. It's an app itself. It produces log data itself, right? So it needs to store that. So it can do that, in the default indexes that it creates for itself. Like you have underscore internal. Now this is used for storing all the internal events that Splunk produces. And as you can see, the event count for Splunk is 2.7 million. So you have these many events there that are stored in this particular index. So these are the default indexes: audit, internal, introspection, metrics, telemetry, fish bucket, history, and main. So these are a few of the default indexes. Now I have created a few indexes myself. I have demo index over here and I have test index myself here. So if you want to create a new index, just click on new index, type in a name, any name, your first or my first index. There, that's it. And then you can save it and then it creates an index for you. And then you can edit it in whichever way you want. But that's more advanced things. This was just basic creating index. Now let's go ahead and check out forwarding and receiving. Because you've created an index. Now how will you store the data in the index? So to do that, you need to configure the forwarding and the receiving. So you're going to be forwarding. So what example I'm going to give you is that this system creates some kind of logs, and this system creates some kind of logs, right? So those logs have to be sent somewhere and received somewhere. So since my Splunk is a single environment server here, it's not a distributed environment. It's going to basically send the logs to itself, but it's going to do so through some ports. So you can do that over here. So you can, you have receiving data. So for that, you need to give the particular port at which it's supposed to receive the data. So just click on add new for receive data, and I'll show you guys how you can know which port you need to add. Okay, so when you want to configure receiving, so the receiving always happens at the port 9997. So just type in 9997 and save it. So you can configure receiving on your particular system. So your system will receive all the ports on 9997. Now I already done it, so if I save it again, it will give me an error. Now let's configure forwarding. So what will basically happen is the data will be sent from the forwarding port that is going to be 8089, and it will be received by the system, the same system again at the port 9997, and sent to the index for storage. Now this is done, this is because we have only a single server, and that's why it's doing it between itself only. If it was a distributed environment, then you'll have to give the proper host. Suppose here the host was actually some other PC in my, in my house or in my workplace, and I wanted to give that. So my workplace PC name, and then the port 8089. But since this is my same PC, the one I'm using. So I'm going to just type in localhost 8089, right? So this is the one it will be sending from. I will not save it again because it's already done. So it's already saved. So let me just cancel this. Let me go to the settings. We'll wait for it to load. Go to Splunk Enterprise. All right, so now you guys know about the indexes and how you can configure the receiving and forwarding. Let me just tell you guys about one more thing, that is data inputs. Now, what kind of data should you be inputting? So let's talk about that. So the data we'll be inputting is this system's, application logs. So I'll just show you guys how you can input them. Yeah, my Splunk is a little bit slow because I've already indexed a lot of data before. I think it's maybe because of my PC. All right, this is the first one in local inputs. You need to collect the local event log collection. So you can edit this or add new if you are working from a default Splunk, like a fresh Splunk. It gives me this because I've already added, a data input before. All right, so these are the available logs you have. You can put in security logs, application logs, and you can choose the destination for storage of all this log. You can choose my first index because that's the index you created, and then you can click on save. All right. So guys, that's how you can, create it. You create an index first, then you configure the forwarding or receiving, then you put the logs that you want to collect. Okay. So now let's just go to search and reporting. And since it's going to take some time to index all of that data, let me just show you guys how you can do basic searches, right? Okay, so basic searching. So I'm going to type in index equal to. So what I'm going to do is instead of using one of the user-defined indexes, I'm just going to use the internal index. That is internal itself. I'm going to search it. So this is my search bar. And over here, you can use a special query that is the SPL. That is the Splunk's query language that you can use. Okay, so it says that there are no results found because my time range is only last 24 hours. So I can change my time range for this particular search. I can go to all time and now change it from last 24 hours to all time. Now you can see it shows me so many different results. It's because it's collecting so many events, like there's 35,000 events, and we saw that internal had 2.7 million events, and you can see it's drastically increasing over here. All right. So as you can see, this is how your data is going to be. All the data are stored, records over here, and they are stored in the JSON format. And this is how they would look. So this is your first data record with its bytes is 795 bytes. The host is this. Its source is this. Source type is the Splunk UI access to source type. The client IP, the file, the method, and all the different things that are available so that you can check. So this is like a basic log of my system. And I can see like a lot of different fields that I want to use. If I want to check out components, then I want to select it. Then it become a selected field. So it will show all the different records that have the component and the source type. Now, if I want to check out all the fields that only have source type, what I can do is I can put space over here, and in quotations I can put source type. So what this will do is this will give me every record which is part of internal index and has source type. Now, a lot of indexes will definitely have a source type, right? So that's why it's listed a lot of events over here, 100,000 events. So, okay, so we've done some basic searches over here. Now, how do we, do a little bit more, check out some more commands for Splunk. So let me just show you guys. So the first command I'll show you guys is stats. So what I will do is I will type in stats count by source type. Okay, guys. So why did I put this pipe over here? So whenever you're typing queries in the search bar, right, you separate them using pipes. So these pipes basically tell Splunk that the previous command, whatever value you get from the previous command, suppose from here you're getting all the events, the 2.7 million events, they will become an input for the next command that you're putting in. Suppose this had only 3 events, then the input value for this particular command will be only be 3 events. Okay, so what is happening here is that taking all the data from internal and then it's doing a stats count by source type. So it will calculate how many particular events are there for a particular source type. So if I press enter, It will show me that for the particular source type, there are these many counts. As you can see, for Splunk D, there's the most number of counts. It's going into, a million counts for Splunk D itself. And all the other source types don't have that many. So this is, you're performing a stats one. So let me just show you guys one more command. That is the table command. So with the table command, you can basically create a table. So I'm typing in table underscore time. This will do the time of the particular component. Then I'm going to type in source type and I'm going to put in data. So this is going to give me a table with time, source type, and data of every component out there. Yes, as you can see, it's all there. So guys, this was, basic Splunk demo for you guys. For more advanced ones, please subscribe so that you can watch other live sessions where I'll be doing this later. Okay, so let's come back. Now that we finished with demo, let me start with the Splunk salary and job trends. Now, Splunk is such a huge field. So many companies, employ Splunk developers, Splunk engineers. So they have different roles, their own made up roles. You will not have the concrete roles I'm going to tell you right now. These are like the basic ones. Like you have your Splunk power user who has a lot of abilities, who knows how to use Splunk, knows how to do the base searches, but is not, in control of a lot of things. Then you have Splunk administrator, who is responsible for deploying the architecture, who's supposed to manage the whole distributed environment and etc. Then you have a developer, Splunk developer, who develops the Splunk apps, Splunk knowledge objects, etc. etc. Now in companies, you will have a mix and match of these different roles. You might not have the same specific role. People prefer to have their own name for a particular role. You might have a Splunk solutions architect that mixes all of these things that all of these different roles do. Okay, this is just an example for you guys. So as you can see, the salary for a Splunk user is power user is $80,000 per year in America and 9 lakhs per annum in India. And for Splunk admin, it's $132,000 in America, and in India it's 13 lakhs per annum. Similarly, for Splunk developer also. So as you can see, the Splunk, the people who work in Splunk are highly sought after and highly paid also. But then this comes with the caveat that this job is a little tough. You need to understand how do we work with Splunk really well. And once you do understand, then people will go for you. They will get you to, they will ask you to come and work for them for a very high salary. All right, so let's see the learning path. What is the further learning path you guys can take for Splunk? Okay, so for Splunk, what are the different tools you can use to learn? So now you guys have seen about Splunk so much, right? Now, how will you study about it? So there are a lot of different sources. You should check out our YouTube channel. We have a lot of professionally made videos for Splunk, and we have a lot of blogs also on this particular matter. But guys, if you want to get certified as a Splunk developer and admin, we do provide that certification also. Let me just show you guys. I'm going to head to Intellipaat website. I'm going to type in Splunk in the search bar. So this is going to show me all the different certifications that we provide. As you can see, we provide a master's architect course where you learn about the Splunk security aspect, the admin aspect, the developer aspect. Let's just check out the Splunk developer and admin certification. So what we do is we provide a Splunk developer plus admin certification where you get to learn aspects of both of them. Now you can choose two different things about this. You can try the instructor-led training or self-paced videos if you just want to do it by yourself. We'll definitely give you a lot of exercises and a lot of projects to work with. And remember, guys, certification is very important if you're not having an amazing background, or if you want to prove something to your employer, your new employer, who will look at you and say, okay, he does have a certification, so I should definitely take him. So keep in mind, we'll be teaching a lot of different things like basic searching, using fields, saving, scheduling, creating knowledge objects, working with the distributed environments, how to create, deploy them, etc., etc. So a lot of different things will be taught to you by people who've had industry experience. You won't be taught by people who don't have industry experience. You'll be taught by trainers, proper trainers. All right. So guys, try and get a certification, invest in your career, and make a future for yourselves. So guys, this brings me to the end of the video, and all of you guys who stayed till the end of the video, especially those newcomers who don't know about this, we offer this YouTube 30 code for all those live viewers we have. So you right now, viewer, if you want to go ahead and get 30% flat off on all of our courses, not just the Splunk courses, you can do so by using this YouTube coupon code and going to our website and typing it while you're buying the course. All right, guys, I'll leave you with this screen where you can have all the contact information. We have Indian number, we have US number, and we have a sales, account where you can, send an email to if you have any inquiries. And also, guys, if you want to chat with our course advisor, you can do so also in our chat in our website. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next live.